Welcome back to Ghana Tonight. A 32-year-old local master of ceremony, the MC, Rashid Ahmed, is facing prosecution for allegedly defiling 10 girls in the Upper West regional capital of Wa. He is currently facing a total of 10 counts of defilement and indecent assault of a minor contrary to Section 10 and 103 of the Criminal Offences Act. The prosecution has told the Wa High Court the accused lured the victims after becoming acquainted with them. Let's hear from the state attorney on this particular issue. Now, Saeed Abdul Shakur is the principal state attorney who spoke to the media after today's court proceedings, and my colleague IBRAHIM Wangara was there for us. Take a look.
Today, the alleged pedophile was arraigned before court and charged with 11 counts of sexual assault on minors between the ages of 10, 11, 13, 14, and the oldest was 15 years. Immediately, the matter was reported to the police. The accused person took a flight from the jurisdiction. He later on spoke to radio stations and indicated that he was advised to go out of the country until calm returns. He sneaked back into the country, and the police, thanks to their intelligence, they were able to arrest him. So today, for the first time, we have arraigned him before court. And because there are still some few loose ends that we need to tie, the police will continue with the investigation. But because of the interest generated by this case, we intend to do a daily trial of this matter. We have already prayed to the court to let us do a daily trial of this matter beginning Monday. So we should have served him with all the necessary documents by Wednesday so that we can start the trial on Monday. And thankfully, if we get a daily trial, we might end this case in just 2 weeks. He is a flight risk. Somebody who has left the jurisdiction before, we cannot be sure he will not escape. Considering the gravity of the offenses and the punishment that is likely to be meted out if he is convicted, we are talking about a minimum of 8 years and a maximum of 25 years for each of the counts. If we succeed in our case, he might be going in for a long time. So if the court allow him on bail, we might be left holding the cheeky end of the stick. We might not get him to try. And we also say that it is in his own interest, because the anger, you can gauge the anger in society. You can reach out to it. You can see that people are hungry. For over 15 years of practice as a lawyer here, I've never seen this number of persons in court before. And this is the first time I've seen almost the entire society at court. If such a person is turned loose, we might not even get him to try, because people might take the law into their own hands. In order to prevent that situation, to the court to keep him in custody and keep him until we end this trial. This, our society ought to learn one thing, that oftentimes they say that the case did not go anywhere. You see, this case is entirely in the hands of the witnesses. If the witnesses are coerced, or if they are persuaded not to turn up, you cannot, it's due process.
Well, it's that last point that the principal state attorney on this case made, that we're going to be engaging Bright Appear shortly on that. The length or the outcome of this case entirely depends on the victims and their families, and we'll tell you why. And we got to know as well that the prosecution is saying that the victims of this defilement are 7, but during the press briefing, the principal state attorney you just heard said the victims were actually 12, and that investigations are ongoing, and there could be more girls who fell victim to this MC who is alleged to have defiled them between the ages of 10 and 13 years old. Now, Bright Appear, Executive Director of Child Rights International, is joining us on Zoom. Appear, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. I mean, does it concern you that until these children were assisted to record their ordeal at the hands of this MC on video, which went viral, maybe we could have never gotten to know of what they were going through? It was because of this viral video that this matter was even taken to court.
If we are to discuss it in a context or looking at it from the geographical point of view, and looking at the work that we've done across the country, I perceive that this became news because the children recorded it or somebody assisted them to do that. That is why it is news for that we are talking about, and for that matter, seeing the kind of interest that we are generating towards this particular issue, because in the northern part of this country, there are a lot of things that are happening that relates to that in certain circumstances are discussed among community members. And it's very difficult for you to take some of these things on because of the nature of it and how sometimes they tend to protect people that engage in this kind of act, especially teachers who are set posting to some rural communities and all that, because they also come from the point of view that the community where they are, teachers find it very difficult to accept posting to those areas. So when they have one, they want to do everything possible to protect them, irrespective of the offense that they've committed. So clearly, it's something that is generating this kind of interest because of the viral aspect of it. But if it is left in the hands of the community alone, in my opinion, I don't think that it would have generated what we are discussing today.
But you see, that's the concern, is it not? Because, I mean, this is the viral video, I mean, which we can show our viewers of, that even ignited this whole court process in the first place. So what can be done to create that safe environment for children who are abused sexually or otherwise in this community, for instance, to have the confidence, the boldness to go and report and not have it recorded on the viral video, so it goes, I mean, on video, it goes viral, and that's when action is taken?
There are a number of cases that when you even want to pursue it, the parents of the children are not willing to be involved, the whole community are not willing to be involved and all that. So it makes it a bit difficult for you to pursue some of these cases. But whatever it is, I think that issues about children, the state has a lot of share in it in terms of how we protect our children and the system that is required for us to do that. And we expect that everything will work mechanically to ensure that the protection of children are done in a manner not only when issues has happened, but also to look at the preventive aspect of it. So if we are experiencing some of these things and we know that our safety net is so weak that we will not be able to provide some of these services, then there's a need for the state to also look at legislations that would enforce prevention. And in this case, if you are talking about prevention, you're also talking about empowering the community members to have certain level of understanding to approach issues that relate to children in a manner that will not escalate to a level where they would also be looking at their interest in order to protect the image of the community. In most cases, it's about the image of the family, the image of the community, and even sometimes in school or churches and all that. So the emphasis should be on what do we do to prevent, or what do we do to ensure that community members have some level of understanding on issues of child protection, so that when people are taking steps, we can quickly deal with that. The other aspect of it that I would look at is how active our system should respond to issues relating to children, and the kind of punishment regime that needs to be spelled out clearly, so that when it happens and we find it in the safety net, all the institutions that are in there will be able to perform their duty clearly in a manner that would also serve as a deterrent to those who commit such offenses. And in such cases, I lay more emphasis on the decision of our court system and what they say, because at least our legal system is not only about looking at criminal cases; it's also a policy-making institution. So sometimes within their legal powers that they have, they should be able to make a statement that will inform policy, so that in design of our framework, we can follow some of these.
In fact, it is on that particular law bit, Mr. Pia, I recall that some 14 young boys were sodomized by a teacher in their community, right? This was a couple of years ago. Now, it had to take you, some NGOs, who had to take up the bills, the medical bills of these young boys who were sodomized. So there's a system failure there, and you are also pointing to a certain failure or deficiency in the law as well. How should this be addressed?
The simple way of looking at addressing some of these issues has to do with what we need to enforce within our constitutional framework to ensure that we defend the right of children. If children must go to the hospital to get a medical report, and that medical report would inform what the subsequent actions that will be taken either by the police or the court, and there's a price on it, then that is injustice. It is unfair to our children that they have to go through that. So it means that we are becoming selective in terms of the kind of justice that we give to our children, because if they don't have the money, then it means that they will not go through the justice system fairly, and they will not have the means of even doing that. So for me, sometimes, because it borders on human right violations, it is important that we would also use the same instrument to call for certain things to be done for our children. For instance, if you feel that getting a medical report will hinder the outcome of the case, then why not? We need to go and seek for interpretation of that particular provision and see what the court will say in respect to that particular case, so that if it's becoming a barrier, then we can easily remove it to make children have a free access to some of these things. That would also facilitate the kind of system that we want to build, especially when it comes to our judicial system and then also prosecution. So it's one way that we can also use to get things done. And for me also, I think that the state must be proactive. And for the state to be proactive, I think that as citizens, we should respond in a manner that would let the state know that the interest of children is paramount, and that is a constitutional right of every child, that anything that concerns them, the state requires that their interests would also be represented, and their welfare will be a paramount decision of the state and any other body or any other institutions and all that. So this kind of enforcement would also put pressure on the state to do what is expected. What
has to be done.
And we are looking at a situation where we'll get to a level where most of issues that concern children will go through that kind of interpretation system.
Indeed.
So that would also become a law that we can also look up to and say that we can use that means to also fight for the right of our children.
Mr. Pia, I appreciate your time and thank you. And it is that call you make about the issues of children being of utmost concern to the society is what leads us to this other issue, because